So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. As always, if you have questions or want to ask anything to the team in real time, please use the chat. Now is the best time to ask those questions, and we'll address them as they come up, either verbally or in chat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. So for those of you who don't know, we are sponsoring the ETH Global Circuit Breaker Hackathon. And I'm seeing Dennis in the audience. I know he's participating because we actually just merged his PR that is fixing the bridge boilerplate code. So thank you so much for that. That was pretty awesome. And then just a overall reminder that we are still doing the weekly miner calls. So for those of you who are interested in exactly what's happening with FishHash or our progress with FishHash or anything about the hard fork or anything to do with mining in terms of the hard work, in terms of the hard fork, etc. Obviously, you can use the miner channel to ask those questions, but if you want to talk to the team or the engineer that's directly responsible for that, we have those every Tuesday at 7 a.m. Pacific time. So feel free to join those as well. Okay, cool. And with that, it's actually a pretty great segue to Daniel. So the way we're going to structure this is we're first going to talk about some of the work that has already been done by the engineering team. Then we're going to move on to talk about some of the work that's in progress that the team is currently working on. And then we're going to talk about some of the future work. And at the end, we'll talk about some of the more foundation related stuff, such as like partnership grants and some of the other foundation programs that we'll be doing. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give it over to Daniel, who's going to talk about some of the FishHash updates.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I made that joke about a hard fork to prep everyone because we do have a hard fork coming up. The planned date is still March 14th. So I'll talk through a little bit what that timeline looks like. So we're a little bit more than a month out from there. Next Friday, we should have a release ready for people to download, and that release will be all you have to upgrade to be prepared for the hard fork. So that'll most likely be a 2.0 release. So up till now, all of our versions have been like 1.15, 1.16. So that release is going to be a 2.0 release. For the SDK or for the Node app, we'll have another Node app version. I'm not sure what the release version will be for that, but we'll let everyone know when you need to upgrade. So when you upgrade, that doesn't mean that the hard forks happened. It just means that you're prepared. Your node is prepared for the hard fork. We'll have a hard fork on the test net first before the mainnet. So that will be in 2 weeks, probably around 2 weeks from today. And then on March 14th will be the hard fork for mainnet. So for users, for anyone using the network, that means that we'll recommend that you not send transactions around that time, probably for 1 to 2 days around that time, just in case there are any issues with the hard fork. We don't expect any, but that's just out of abundance of caution. For miners, you will need to get updated mining software, which I know I've talked to a lot of the mining devs, and they're planning on releasing new versions with FishHash included. So look out for those on their releases. What else?
The other thing is that we did have an audit complete by Trail of Bits. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we for anyone who is out of the loop here, the hard fork is upgrading our mining algorithm to be a memory hard proof of work mining algorithm. We're moving to FishHash from Blake 3. And so we did have an audit on FishHash, an external audit, which was completed last week. And although they did find a couple theoretical areas for optimization, but they're areas that we're not too concerned about at this point. And there were no serious security vulnerabilities or no attacks that they found. So I think we're pretty comfortable with fish hash and still planning on going forward with the hard fork. And we'll release that audit probably in the next week or two after we've talked with Lolly Diab, who's the creator of fish hash, and gone over basically gone over the audit with him.
Awesome. The other concern, or maybe I shouldn't say concern, but thing to think about is obviously the difficulty adjustment when switching the algorithm. So right now we're using Blake 3, which is a fairly fast hashing algorithm, and we're moving over to fish hash, which is significantly slower. So Matt, who's up next, is going to be talking about our thought process in terms of the difficulty adjustment and what to expect.
Thanks, Elena. So yeah, as Elena mentioned, the fish hash is a dramatically slower than Blake 3 on equivalent hardware. We're looking at numbers between 250 to 500 times slower. So we're trying to make some changes to account for that during the hard fork so that the network isn't stalled for potentially over a week. And so we're doing two things. We are making the maximum downward difficulty adjustment larger. If anybody's familiar with how the target calculation works, it basically would adjust, the difficulty would slowly drop over about 17 minutes. For a maximum adjustment about 5%. We're doubling that to about about 30 minutes for a maximum adjustment of about 10%. On top of that, we're also going to do a one-time difficulty adjustment at the block that fish hash activates. And we're just going to basically divide the difficulty by a couple of orders of magnitude, with the idea being that we expect the network to still be a little bit slow that first day, but we don't want it to be like 5 to 10 hours per block. We want it to be, maybe hopefully it will be like 10 minutes as the miners switch over to the new algorithm, and it will slowly adjust down over the course of about a day, and it will be back on track fairly smoothly. So we have one discourse post up already for the extended difficulty adjustment, and I still need to put up one for the one-time difficulty adjustment. So keep an eye out for that, and then the FIPS will be up shortly after that. Yeah, that's all I have there.
Awesome. Up next is Dan, who's going to be talking about the official release of Node App 2.0. Some of you may have been testing it in beta, which is awesome. Thank you for that. But it has now officially been released. So, Dan, take it away.
Yeah, so we're super excited that the Node App 2.0 project was finally officially released. Thanks to everybody that helped us identify issues with the beta release. So the beta release was 2.0.0. Since then, we're actually up to 2.0.3. So there's been three releases since, and they've added things like migrating your address book from the previous Node app on startup. We also added transaction hash links to the transactions in the Node app, and they will link directly to the Block Explorer, so you can go and see your transaction in the Block Explorer really easily. We've also, fixed some bugs and made some minor UX improvements. And if you're using the Node app and you have any feedback at all, we've got the Node app channel. So please drop any suggestions or comments in that channel if you want to help us figure out what to add next.
Awesome. All right, next up is Derek, who's going to be talking about the HTTP client for the Iron Fish SDK.
Hey everybody, Yeah, so we recently made a change to the SDK. So if you're running a node that uses HTTP as the RPC API, which some people might do, it might be a little bit more convenient to do if you're hosting it somewhere. Our SDK now includes a client that can connect to the HTTP API. So whether you're running a node that's using RPC over TCP or HTTP, that's included in the SDK now. And Jason got in some changes that'll be coming up in the next SDK release and CLI release that'll fix a few like kind of user experience issues when importing accounts. One is when importing like an account that has a name that already exists in your wallet, and the other is if you import like a mnemonic phrase or a spending key that doesn't have a name attached. In both cases, the import command would just error out and close. And you'd have to like pass the -- name flag manually to specify a name for an account. But with Jason's changes, which will be coming in the next release, you'll just be able to, it'll reprompt you for the name for the account to enter one in there. So that'll be nice. And now I want to transition into what we're working on now and what's coming up. So the team that's been doing work on the Node app, we're still going to continue to do little improvements and maintenance fixes here and there, but we're shifting to work on a mobile app now. So we're just getting started with that, and we're in the research phases around kind of which technology to use and how to bring some of the Rust code into a mobile app in a way that's easy to work with. Yeah, our plan for that is to develop like a light wallet. So that's like not a full node. It won't be connecting to the peer-to-peer network, but it'll be connecting to like a light wallet server. The idea is just to make it as easy as possible on mobile to like input your account or import an account and then check your balance and do transactions without necessarily having to worry about like the overhead of syncing slowly or connecting to the peer-to-peer network, any connection issues there. At this time, we're not planning to connect to like nodes directly, but rather there'll be some light wallet server that's hosted. We're still very much in the planning phases here, so our plans are we're going to open up a channel in Discord, probably in the developer section, just for anybody else who may have been working on a mobile wallet or mobile client, or anybody who's interested in kind of weighing in on opinions on how they feel like one of these should be built. But yeah, hopefully we'll have more to come in the next month, but still very much in the planning phases around what tech to use and kind of what we want to include in the wallet. Let me see who is up next. I think next will be Rohan to talk about multi-sig.
Hello, I'm using Jason's account. We're here together in person, but this is Rohan. So yeah, as Derek mentioned, I'll be giving an update on the multi-sig project. As most of you are familiar with, Iron Fish has been working on adding multi-signatures to our transactions. And what this means is you can have multiple parties produce signatures to agree on transferring funds, minting assets, or burning assets. So the multi-sig team recently met in person, and we completed our first multi-sig on-chain transaction. We transferred some funds on testnet, and it was successfully added to a block and mined. So it's been a good verification that all the work that we've been putting in is actually working, and we are on target for a completion of this project in early March. So the work has not been shipped yet in the SDK. We have some improvements for usability and encrypting messages back and forth between the participants, but stay tuned on more news for that and expect a release probably in the next month or so. Next, I will hand it over to Dan, who will be talking about some updates to the website.
Hey again. Very small update, but kind of a cool one actually, especially if you're a developer looking to, find documentation on the website, or if you happen to be curious about some of the blogs that we published in the past. We actually added search to the website in both the documentation and the blog. So now it should be a lot easier to find that content that you're looking for. So yeah, if you go to the Iron Fish website, go to any of the documentation pages or the blog, you'll see a search bar. Just type your search term and you'll get those results back.
Awesome. Okay, now we're going to move over to talk about some of the future work that we'll be working on. So one of the biggest projects that we've actually worked on in the past and still need to work on in the future is something that we call asset ownership. And asset ownership is basically how different accounts can have different ownership kind of rules to do that. So Jason, I've kind of volunteered you to talk about that. Let me know if you still want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So when we talk about asset ownership, Iron Fish at its fundamental core is a multi-asset protocol. That means that yes, we have a native, we have a native token, Iron, or some people know as the fundamental currency is Ore, right? But you can also mint your own. And the question is, when you do mint that asset, who owns that asset? Who can sign transactions that can mint more of that asset, and who controls it? So right now, it's essentially just the key who minted it, but we actually have what we're calling Asset Ownership 1.0. It actually was fully completed by the team, and it allowed the owner to actually rotate the owner to a new key. So this says if my key is compromised or I want to transfer ownership, I can give that ownership to somebody else or just another key that I control. We think this is a pretty good solution, but we actually held off on releasing it. For one reason, we wanted to actually make it even more powerful than that. And it will require a hard fork ultimately when we kind of release this. We want to make sure that we get it right. So we're kind of looking at V2 to be a bit more powerful with some added features. And to do that, we're actually talking to kind of bridge operators that want to integrate with Iron Fish, and we're just making sure that Asset Ownership V2 will align with the goals they need. We're looking at features, everything from like separating administrator keys from minting keys, and administrator keys can author minting keys, and there could be multiple minting keys that can be revoked by administrators. So there's a lot of stuff going into that. And obviously, when we kind of have that proposal and it's kind of a little bit more solidified, obviously it'll go through the FIP process, which, if you are not sure how kind of protocol changes get proposed and voted on by the governance system, it's a great time to go over to, fips.ironfish.network, which I'll link, or someone will link right after this. It'll go through the normal process through a discourse proposal to then ultimately a FIP that'll lead to the hard fork. So we are looking forward to Asset Ownership 2.0 when it does kind of get worked on and aligns with bridges more, because we know it's going to be very useful to our community. So that's all about asset ownership. I'm going to talk a little bit about something else. So Rohan earlier mentioned multi-sig, which is obviously multi-signature wallets. It allows multiple people to control an asset kind of together, or, really notes together. They can sign transactions as a party. And in the first version of multi-sig that you will see, we are going to have, what we're calling trusted dealer key generation. This means that if Rohan and myself want to produce a multi-sig wallet, one of us has to be a trusted party. So if he gives me part of the information I need to generate it and I produce it, I will ultimately hold both of our shards of the key and I will distribute that back to Rohan. So this is, like a trusted model for creating these multi-party kind of wallets. But there is a model that doesn't require trust called, we're calling multi-sig DKG, which is distributed key generation. This will not make it into the first release of multi-sig, but we think that's okay because there are institutions now, like exchanges, which will be producing these keys, or like bridge operators, which will need to produce these keys in a trusted way. You can obviously make your own multi-sig wallets for yourself in a trusted way because you trust yourself, hopefully. But we are very interested in DKG as well. So this is work that we're planning on the roadmap as soon as the first version of multi-sig ships, and it'll be great because you can start testing multi-sig right away while we continue to build these other features. Nice. Yeah, so that's all I have to say about multi-sig. And then we are actually focusing I'm going to talk about my one last topic, which is actually as we start to near a future where we do have bridges for Iron Fish, and we are bridging to kind of all these other, things, or all these other protocols, we're going to need to be able to store additional metadata for bridged assets. So we're kind of looking into a way to do this right now. Some of you may know that you've seen check marks on some of the assets in the CLI. We don't actually have this in our Node app, unfortunately, yet. But if you use the CLI, we have a concept of verified assets. And there is a trusted API which it pulls from, but you can customize that API yourself and provide your own token lists, if you will, similar to what Uniswap has. So we're most likely going to expand the system to allow assets to be able to not just specify if they're verified or not, but like provide a logo, provide like an official name, potentially provide a symbol, right? Provide an amount of decimals that such a token should be rounded to when displayed and parsed for input. So we are interested in, as we do near this world, to like bolster our kind of custom assets and prepare them for actual assets from Ethereum or whatever other chain that protocol or the asset will come from. So this is going to be an important project. So yeah, that's all I have. I'm going to pass it back to Elena to talk about partnerships and grants.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Now we're going to be moving over to talk about some of the more foundation related things. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is some of the partnerships and grants that we've kind of developed in the past month or so, or at least ones that we can announce now. So the first one is we are going to be working with Zondax for the ledger integration. We talked to a lot of people who have used Iron Fish, including exchanges or investors or even bridge operators, etc. And one of the things that people really are missing from the Iron Fish ecosystem is the support for any hardware wallet. And so we are going to be working with Zondax. Zondax has actually done the ledger integration for pretty much every single L1 that you might have ever heard of. Like they're the main shop in town. And most L1 teams, literally pretty much all of them, have actually worked with Zondax for the ledger integration. Ledger integration is kind of one of those things where, technically speaking, it may not be so hard, but the actual process of going through the audit process and going through the ledger approval process and kind of going back and forth with them is pretty extensive, and they're really great experts at that. And also, they're actually pretty incredible engineers. They've been to several ETH Global events and are just actually a pretty prominent member of the crypto and Ethereum ecosystem, as well as other L1 ecosystems. So pretty excited to work with them. The other partnership that we're going to kind of announce today, but we're going to be writing a lot more blog posts and do an actual marketing push around it, is our integration with Chainport. So Chainport is a bridge operator. And right now they're operating, I think, like over or close to 20 L1 chains or 20 L1 and L2 chains. And if you look at L2 Beats, they're top 10 bridge operators. And so we'll be working with them to basically plug in Iron Fish into the ecosystem. We are super excited about this partnership because this will be the first kind of bridge operator that's going to be operating with Iron Fish. And because they support so many other chains, Iron Fish gets access, or I should say the other way around, those assets get access to storing those assets on Iron Fish for full privacy. So that's actually pretty exciting. They are more of a centralized bridge, which I think is okay, because I think centralized bridges have their own place for certain use cases. And again, we just started working with them. It's been going really great so far. So pretty excited for that to come to fruition. So that, in terms of end-to-end process, is going to take them roughly 5 months. But one of the biggest checkpoints that they'll have in terms of an end-to-end product that works testnet to testnet, I think it's scheduled in about 3 months. So again, really excited for this. There is actually another bridge partnership that we cannot announce yet. We'll hopefully announce it later this month. And it's also equally exciting. It's also a fairly large bridge operator. And again, it's going to be plugging Iron Fish into more of the EVM or Ethereum ecosystem, which again, I'm pretty excited about. The other one is OreoWallet update. So I know Fish Guy was on this call. I think it just dropped out. This was actually a grant that we gave a while back to do a browser wallet. And he released kind of an MVP process. It's not really fully done yet, but he did reach some pretty critical milestones to kind of show a basic MVP of what that browser wallet can do. So that's been pretty awesome, and that's going on schedule, so pretty great as well. Cool. And then we have Kelly up next, who's going to be talking about the ambassador program.
Hello. Yes, we are excited to announce that we are planning to launch the ambassador program February 13th, which is next Tuesday. Very excited about getting this started. We will be doing it on a platform called Zeely, and I can toss that into the chat. We will be opening up our own kind of community on Zeely next week, so you'll be able to join. This will be a 12-week sweepstakes. So you will do different action items in order to get entries into the sweepstakes. And we're very excited to have a whole bunch of different kinds of action items, everything from trivia to memes to other events that we'll be holding on Discord. And so just stay tuned for an official announcement on Discord next week. We're very excited to get started on this program.
Awesome. More to come on the ambassador program. I know a lot of you are pretty excited. Okay, cool. So next update is ETHDenver. So we will be at ETHDenver. We'll be doing a privacy panel. Hopefully we'll be doing something else as well. But in addition to that, we're also co-hosting a 2-day War Cafe with Electric Capital. So if you're at ETHDenver and you want to come say hi, or you want to get some Iron Fish swag, please let me know or drop in. We'll tweet about it as well. But yeah, I would love to see some Iron Fishers in real life if you just happen to be at ETHDenver. ETHDenver is one of the bigger, actually, I think it's one of the biggest ETH Global events or ETH Global kind of adjacent events. So pretty excited to be doing that. Actually, right before there's also going to be ETH Pragma, I believe. And we might be doing an event there as well. Forgot to tell you, Kelly. Okay, cool. And we are at time. Actually, we're 1 minute over. So I'm pretty glad that we've been, on time for these things. So usually we kind of keep going. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. This will actually be posted on YouTube. So if you missed it or want to listen to it again, etc., that's gonna be posted a couple days from now. And yeah. Oh, I'm just reading some of the questions in the chat. There's this guy, Elon Trades. He's great at bringing projects to X. I think to, oh yeah. So I've actually spoken to Elon Trades. Very open to talking to him. I'm not opposed to it at all. But yeah, I can ping him again if there's anything that I missed. The meter box. Cool. Yeah, we can talk to you as well. Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out so that we are on time. Yeah, Lorvik, if you want to just drop in your Telegram, I think that'd be easier for one-on-one conversations, because usually I honestly miss my DMs on Discord because I get just bombarded with spam. That would be great. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and have an awesome Friday. Bye, everyone.